holiday season, you might be looking for nutritious, convenient meals to keep you energized on jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, can help you fuel up for brekkie, lunch, or dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. They just drop them at your door, people. You'll save time and eat well. You'll stay on track with your healthy lifestyle while taking all of your holiday to-dos in stride with good meals in the tum-tum. If you're too busy with all this stuff, these meals are easy to get done. They taste great. All you've got to do is head over to factormeals.com/expandingreality50 and use code expandingreality50 to get 50% off. That's code expandingreality50 at factormeals.com/expandingreality50 to get 50% off.
At Sleep Outfitters Outlet, great sleep is a big deal. Save 40 to 60% every day on every Sealy, Stearns & Foster, and Tempur-Pedic. Queens as low as $249. Customer exchanges, closeouts, and floor samples. Inventory changes daily, so come in for your dream deal today. With no credit needed financing, expert advice, and up to 60% off retail, it's never been easier to get the sleep and savings you deserve. Go to sleepoutfittersoutlet.com for financing details and to find a store near you.
A choice right now between fear and love. It's just a rock.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expounding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality.
Welcome to Expanding Reality. I am your host, Brandon Thomas. On this episode, a very special one. Andy Rouse, good buddy from the Deep Share podcast, stops by to have a mind-blowing conversation about all things amazing. We go into the depths of reality, and we kind of tease a little bit of the box saga at the very end, and he does a phenomenal job blowing our minds with that as well. So all the ways to find Andy and his show will be linked down in the show notes. Make sure that you guys take advantage of that. Take advantage also of our affiliate link. So Food Forest Abundance, if you want to get your freedom from fear on, it is linked down in the show notes, as well as if you would like to start your own podcast host through who I host through, which is Libsyn, and they're wonderful, can't recommend them enough. Also, if you're going to buy any damn thing on Amazon, anything at all, it doesn't matter what it is, run it through our link. It helps the show for something that you were going to buy anyway. Also, if you would like to expand your experience with us here on the program, you can do so at expandingrealitypodcast.com, linked in the show notes as well. That is where Rockfin, socials, all that cool stuff, merchandise, if you want to get some t-shirts and such, that's over there. Check it in the show notes as well. So let's get to this mind-blowing conversation. Andy's a great friend, and this is easily one of the best. So without any further ado, let's do the damn thing with Andy Rouse. Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming to the show, it is good buddy, the Deep Share podcast host extraordinaire. You do everything. You run the most incredible panels. You've just become an incredibly dear friend, and I'm grateful for you for everything that you do. It's Mr. Andy Rouse. How are you, brother?
Brandon, I love you, man. Thank you so much for having me on, brother.
Kidding me? This is fucking awesome, dude. I'm so pumped for this. So what are you doing right now? I love your studio, by the way. So tell us about your setup. I saw a side picture the other day, and I'm just kind of curious. Location of home, or this is an in-home?
This is in-home. And you know what? It's a proud basement dwelling studio, you know? It's the only place that I've ever been as like the black sheep of the family. I was always the one in the basement on my computer video games, or with my books, or with my fucked up movies or whatever. So yeah, I've always been down here. It's always been my cave. And so before I named the show The Deep Share, I have to give my wife Kate credit there. She actually came up with the Deep Share podcast. But I had something imagery wise in my head going about like Plato's cave. And I had some cheesy names going in my head for something to do. Too on the nose. You know what I mean? Way too on the nose with Plato's cave. But the imagery stands. I'm in Plato's cave right now.
Yeah, but the light is on the outside, and it's much more beautiful, and that's what's so cool. It's like the position you have from this, and I don't know if this was deliberate, but it's like you came back from being outside of the cave for the first time to tell everyone in the cave. Okay, I'm sure it was deliberate.
Absolutely, yeah. I wanted to be in the cave because for some reason my plight, and my enjoyment out of life is the same thing, which is trying to share whatever's in here with everyone out there.
Yeah, but from the perspective of having already gone outside to come back in to tell everyone, that's crazy. Absolutely. Cool. Like, that's what I like. You've gone out, you've had the adventures. And so, dude, tell me why you started the Deep Share in the first place.
I woke back up. I would say that in 2015 or 16, I had a friend come to me at the perfect time and start rattling things in my ear right around the time where I was having my first son was coming into the world soon. So it was like right at the end of 2016, this was happening. And then my son came in 2017. And so right around that time when the world was starting to just get crazy anyway, it didn't have to be a pandemic to be completely batshit crazy. It was crazy forever. But I had kind of, just as I guess a little back story is that I kind of put myself back to sleep long ago because I didn't have this kind of wonderful community around me to bounce ideas off of and receive new insight and expand on things. I was always met, like so many of us, with ridicule or misunderstanding or fear or whatever by my peers and my family and this and that, because I was right in their faces with like, Mom, you're not going to believe what I discovered on mushrooms. She's like, oh my God, drugs. But I was just right. I couldn't help it because what I wasn't realizing at the time was I was going through like a spiritual awakening or whatever that awe-inspired human experience deep down is what I was really going through. And the psychedelics were a trigger for that, which enhanced the experience anyway. So I wanted to, when I finally woke back up because of how crazy the world was and becoming a parent, which was the real impactful thing, I decided I finally needed to do what everyone I really was inspired by was doing too, which was share what was in here with each other as much as possible. They spin the idea of an echo chamber into a negative thing all the time because it can be very negative sometimes and unproductive, not productive at all, counterproductive. But in some cases, they are, very important because it emerges as this bigger growing thing. This is where ideas are born, with the outcasts all getting together and starting to talk about the crazy shit that no one else wants to hear about. So it's kind of the origin story.
I love it, and you're 100% right. And I like these OGs in these fields that we bring up. I know that Daniel White, didn't you talk to him?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay.
Not personally.
Didn't you send me that? His video?
Maybe.
Okay, he was awesome. He was talking about some crazy cool globe shit, but the point I'm making is I talk to a lot of like authors and people who are old school and have been in the game since the beginning, of this or of their early days, like our age, but just, 40 years ago. And it's awesome to kind of get to tap into that knowledge as well and to share this on this kind of platform because, like you said, man, podcasting, it's the coolest community ever. We share guests all the time. We should both get Daniel White on then. That sounds like a cool
absolutely.
Dude. Yeah, we'll work on that. And it's just the coolest community, but it's the coolest share of information. And this is what's so awesome. Now, I like coming on with different people and discussing similar topics, like just to get their approach on some things, especially in I kind of find that I do this in phases. This whole show is just kind of more of like a diary for me or like a journal.
Yep, I feel it. I feel you.
So I'm like, this is what I'm thinking about right now. So there's like, months where I'll start, talking about consensus reality or Mandela effect. I'm really into right now because I've really thought a lot about it in a different way. Anyway, but you find yourself in these blocks of time like that, and it's this progression of where you can get new people's take on it and people who have been exploring similar ideas, and it just expands the idea. And then now that it's expanded, you can't stop talking about it because you're like, fucking motherfucker, dude, listen to this. This dude told me this about it, and now it makes so much more sense. And it's just the coolest way to walk through kind of discovering new things about this place. So let me ask you this before we even go any further. What is one of the coolest discoveries that you have made on your show, granted to you by either research that you've done for the show or a guest that has bestowed this upon you?
One of my favorite guests so far out of this whole year I've done podcasting, out of all the great, amazing people I've talked to, I got to talk to like one of my, a guy I've just been following for years and years and listening to and watching on TV was Mr. Freddie Silva. He came on and we talked a lot about ancient civilizations and the Anunnaki and things like that. And he comes at it from a very human perspective, with just like a wink of the eye of maybe they're from somewhere else. Like I don't even know what he really believes deep down about it, but I know that he's had vast presences in temples and just really intense spiritual experiences. So he's definitely open-minded to all ideas. But what he blew my mind about was his method for understanding what he loves, and all of his work is getting to know the people are in these areas. So when he spoke to the Aboriginal peoples of the area around Göbekli Tepe and figured out what that phrase, that word really meant, I guess it was 2 separate languages. And that's what he was just deducing this from different tribes and different people talking to him and stuff like that. It means the umbilicus of Osiris, the umbilicus of Osiris. And the crazy part is Göbekli Tepe, I guess, points on like a perfect 90-degree angle or something directly to the Osirian in Egypt. It's crazy. Damn. So that just blew my world wide open beyond beyond the pop culture version of the past 10 years, which is, shit just keeps getting older. Yeah. Things just started to get weirder, way weirder. And it wasn't just happening in my head in all my old psychedelic trips anymore. It wasn't happening in all the old books I read from all the crazy quantum physicists and theorists. And it was happening in front of me in all the shit I was finding out about now. It just yeah.
And the coolest thing about this, and I don't know if you're sharing this, but it's like that 100th monkey thing. We know that that's observable in nature. We've done studies on it. We've all talked about it. So what's interesting about this that I find too is there's a lot of big ideas coming out that a bunch of people are kind of popping up together. We're all kind of coming to similar conclusions, are all willing to pull an idea further and weave it into our own understanding. I think more. It's got to do with the capacity to receive and deliver information in a more open-minded way. And so it seems like that's part of this shift. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I see that. I mean, because we're all one, right? I mean, it's all just like one big consciousness of some kind. I think personally, I think it's like some sort of, I don't know, something along those lines. We can put it into a million different words, but yeah, the waking up process we're all going through, it seems, not all, of course, there's resilience, but I see it as a fractal pattern in reality, because it seems like everything turns out to be fractal. And so when you look at an individual undergoing psychotherapy for like deep trauma in their past, one method would be like hypnotherapy, or, there's many methods that you can do, but it all involves addressing those traumas and facing them and understanding them and growing from them and moving on. And this is the root of like most of what psychology is there for, is to try to root out the issues in our heads, And so now on a collective level, apparently we've reached this curious age of maybe teenagers or something. I don't know what you'd say about us as an individual if you could look at the human race that way, but we are now collectively, just so happens, to be digging into our past, our collective past, into all of our old traumas. And what my wife and I, Kate, talk about all the time is generational trauma, and what that really is, and how fucking real it really is, and how dramatic and expansive it is. It's across our whole planet. We all have this generational trauma And to me, I think it probably comes from some kind of massive world-ending cataclysm at some point in the physical realm that literally destroyed us on a human level. And from there, imagine what we were passing down, for guilt and hatred and fear and anger and all the horribleness that something like that event would have caused. It's just triggered from there. Just turns it into narcissism and all the rest. So we're all addressing all these deep rooted psychological traumas that happened to us that maybe at one time weren't so psychological. Maybe, they could have been physical wars and real human traumas.
Or even a code in the matrix of the simulation that says that this is how we should experience it so that we can learn not to. It may be like
Absolutely.
a filter here, you know what I mean? When you talk about something like the simulation argument or designing yourself from a soul's perspective, and you can kind of, figure all that out, goes the idea, then you would think that there'd be some sort of like rule implemented, where there'd be like a set of filters or something that can be adjusted, they can dim down the contrast and raise the brightness, but it's difficulty and trials and tribulations and shitty weather, and stuff like that. Like there's it's probably pretty customizable at that level, I would think, if you really go for it, you know what I mean? But as far as the experience goes, though, it's very, very real and very here, and we're all on board with it. But I think that you have something to this generational trauma thing. Now, there was a dude I had on the show for my 100th, and he's been on before. He's a good friend of mine named Pat Mahan. Highly recommend everybody just go listen to this dude. Like Attracts Like. You should totally talk to him. He's incredible. And one of the things about generational trauma and where we took it there was this whole, yes, we're all one. Okay. So if we're all one, then you step that back and say, okay, well, if you heal something about yourself now, then it heals everything out, like from a ripple from you, because you're everything. So if there's only the eternal moment of now and you're all that there is and your consciousness is focused here, then what you changes everything. So even to the level of like you reinterpreting a memory from your past, as like the shadow work and working on that shit goes, you reinterpret something traumatic that happened from your past, and it literally, as far as your mind goes, which is the only thing that you can count on, and not even that really, it never existed. So perhaps you time travel back and make it never happen, so that therefore you now doesn't experience what happened back then. That's with the generational trauma shit. That's where I'm at with it, is healing on this like quantum level, in all directions. I dig that idea, man. But I think that though that everyone has the chance to do this, but not everybody takes themselves up on it for whatever reason. Like maybe they're ignorant to the idea or just not exposed to it, or maybe it's too deep, and they can't find the way out this time, and that's part of their experience, and it's just their journey and all that shit.
It is deep.
It goes though, you know what I mean? But
the simulation theory itself is it's a rabbit hole.
I mean, it is, and it keeps getting more interesting because, the more you look at it, it's a good framework, but I love the way that Mark Steves has talked about it, and he's been in this a whole time, and a lot of others, but he's the one I think of when I think of this idea, is that organic simulation, and how it's way more of like a living thing rather than so mechanistic. It acts mechanistic, but it's actually organic.
Yeah, I feel like I was in like the control room or something on psychedelics. Like I had a lot of experiences and vague memories remain of an existence that was completely and utterly real, but it had nothing to do with like, I don't know. So simulation theory is so contemporary, it just relates to the matrix and computers and a control force creating this. And, I think it's more organic to the point where, let's call it God, because it's convenient. I love calling it God. It works. I'm not even religious, but it works. It's, how should I put it? Like, kind of lost my train of thought there for a second.
God.
It's right before that. What was I saying right before that?
It's about the Matrix.
Yeah, so simulation theory. So the organic aspect of it. So like God doesn't know he's doing it either, and doesn't know how he's doing it either. It's kind of like that in my opinion. And Alan Watts shares that. Alan Watts blew my mind. I feel like Alan Watts was the best Western mind to come back from the East and describe to people that didn't understand what he was talking about. Where I think Tim Leary and Ram Dass.
Yeah.
I get Ram Dass, but you read "Be Here Now" as someone that's never tripped on mushrooms or meditated deeply, or you're probably gonna read it as gibberish. You know what I mean? So, but yeah. Fuck, I'm too stoned, man.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
What did I just lose my trend of thought on again? The simulation theory and God not knowing what he was. Yeah.
All right. Every time that Andy loses his train of thought, y'all got to take a B rip with him. All right.
Fucking jeez. I'm sorry, guys.
I love this. This is great.
Been a long time.
That's great.
But so anyway, it's like God doesn't know that he doesn't know how he's doing it. And Alan Watts would say, you shine the sun the same way you work your thyroid gland. And some reason you don't know how you do either one of those things. It just felt so perfect when he said that, because there is like some part of existence where like there's I guess a culmination of consciousness that could be called God, maybe. And it has like some sort of purpose. And to me, it's like the closest thing I've ever seen was the end of Dogma, where like Alanis Morissette just like winks, like goes, that's it. Yeah. That's all you're getting. Night.
That's so crazy.
So like,
you said that.
I think, we get to experience something after this, but I don't think we ever get full gnosis, or so. I don't know, man. It's where once we do, we're immediately thrown back into repression because it's too much.
Yeah, and maybe that's it. Maybe we get to the end of this. The truth is there. We have access to it, but we can't handle it. And we have to come back here and ascend to be able to get to the point to where we can handle the next level mentally, just conceptually.
And I like those ideas, and I've had a lot of experiences that kind of ring that and echo that, and it freaks me out straight up. Like kind of having that past lives experience is kind of creepy, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like this is not deja vu. This is like what deja vu feels like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's really weird. And I wonder though, I've never been able to answer this, and no human, I don't really think can, how much of our belief in that is desperation for the ego to continue. And I'm not an atheist. I'm freaking out sometimes thinking about that stuff.
How I would answer that, because I've never heard the question or thought about it, but how I would answer it would be that it's not the ego, it's the curiosity. It's the desire to continue on to serve. It's not a
I like that.
Because it's not a self-preservation thing. That's what, in my mind, separates it from the way that I feel about it. It's not that I
think you just saved my life, man. Because seriously, for the past few months, I've been thinking about that. Like, oh shit, I'm like really starting to question this whole like other realm for infinity thing, because I don't know. And if who's me? Like, I don't know. Buddhism kicks the self right the hell out altogether. That's why it's split from Hinduism. There is no self in Buddhism. And that's why for a long time, it was very fringe, So I don't know. I'm lost in thought there. I like your curiosity idea because it takes it away from the ego and it makes it more of a natural process of like consciousness, and the universe is consciousness. So curiosity is the only reason why it's here in the first place, I would say.
I agree with that. Yeah. And the desire to grow, there's like if it is a settings thing, the setting for curiosity is just off the scale, with most of us. And so I think that alone, and then drive and hope, I mean, those notches are turned way up, and you have like empathy, and that one's cranked. And so these things culminate into more of a populace, I think, that can wrap their mind around these concepts to a greater level. Like, I ask a question every now and then on the show about like a genie bottle, and like if a genie bottle washes up on shore, you get 3 wishes. What would you like? And somebody asked me, and so I said that the honest answer is I just need one. I need everybody else to I need the whole of humanity, not everybody else. I'm not excluding myself. Everyone to raise to their next level of consciousness, and we do that as a collective, dude, fucking game changer. There's your 5th dimension that Dolores Cannon's talking about. There's your next level of everything, due to the idea that then you eliminate all of the things that keep us in a lower vibrational state. Now, to what we were talking about your experience here, I think that, like you said about the traumas and stuff like that, it again perhaps has to do with the vibrational state of this existence, which is probably like just a learning tool or something like that.
Yes, I would completely agree with you. And I think these things are happening at the same time. Like it's a Russian doll. It goes back to the fractal idea, where on every level of, I think we confuse a lot of different like scales invariance Like, like we mix crazy ideas that we find out about, but they're actually from different like scales of reality. So that's why we're not kind of easily figuring it all out. We have it all spiderwebbed and mixed together. You know what I mean? Some philosophies like describe all of them. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's kind of a weird concept anyway.
No, it's a beautiful concept because it's on the table and it's possible. And what I like about this too, and I think I was on Gen Z and Dave and Camden and I were talking about this, that it may be that all these ideas are us creating other realities as we speak, because this God spoke the universe into existence. So speak is very important. And I just had Yogi Zorananda on, very proud of that conversation because he crushed it. And dude, you know him, amazing dude. And we were talking about this and the power of the voice, and then just having Stuart Pierce on and him talking about the voice. It's a concept again. It's one of these blocks of time I'm in my understanding that just keeps popping back up. In all directions. I'm just being bombarded with it. You found like an untapped spot. You're just like digging away at it, You're like, holy shit. Yeah, it's
more info.
Well, it's interesting too, because I'm sure you experience this, man. When you start to go down a rabbit hole, you see it from everywhere. Like all the other stuff. Like I don't hear shit about 9/11 anymore, and there's plenty of people talking about it. I don't hear anything about a lot of things, and there's plenty of people talking about it. What pops up and pushes to my forefront is all of the things that I'm looking at lately, and even like things that I haven't looked at in a while, but I look at them again through that lens of a new understanding and alter it and cut it in.
It's always a spiral, You're always coming back around and seeing things again from a new place, a new level in that scale and variance.
Yes, and so you're who I say. So I say the Matryoshka doll thing a lot, and it's because of you.
Awesome.
And this idea of it like that. Now, how I say that, and then I say this fractal nature, same thing. You and I have the similar understanding about this, or idea about it right now. I'll put it that way. And so what I say, though, is like if you walk out of your front yard and you look up and you look out into space or whatever, then you're looking at a star. Let's say that you're not looking at a star somewhere out there, but really you're looking at a subatomic particle of yourself, looking back at that star, looking back at a subatomic particle of itself.
Shit.
So you have this fractal nature to where there is no escape because there's nowhere else to go. And so I think that, again, it can all be achieved here. And so which kind of, again, if you if you go back to like this idea that, it is a test or there's something after, to answer your question on, because I was just thinking about it while we were talking here about, I think that I feel the way that I do about the afterlife because it seems like that this is the worst that it is. You know what I mean? Like that I just have this feeling like that this is the densest and heaviest this is. And I have a wonderful fucking life and I know some incredible people. So that's just kind of how I feel about it. That's the feeling I get when I think about the other side, whatever that means.
Yeah, I think what I'm just lately, I totally agree with you, man. And what lately I've been kind of playing with, and who knows, maybe it's my ego popping up going, yeah, but what if, and like dragging me down, is just how much of the ego projects away from, like, how much does consciousness or conscious experience in the way we know it differ or possibly fade or change? I don't know. It's on, in those realms, perhaps. I'm not sure. I really don't know. It feels more real than real when I'm in the psychedelic realm, but it also felt more like than anything else that I was in my head. Not that I was stuck inside a small space, but that everything was in my head. It was kind of like the Truman Show effect. You go down that rabbit hole, it gets real creepy. Then you watch the Truman Show a couple weeks later and start freaking out, and your girlfriend dumps you, and all kinds of crazy shit starts happening. Those kinds of things. But I still dabble in that, and I haven't figured really what that is either. And what part of the ego versus the higher true self or whatever is being expressed in those kinds of deeper, creepier experiences. I don't know, but I've heard many talk about it. And it's like, as soon as I heard more people talking about it, then I got really freaked out. I'm like, okay, all right, so I'm not the only one here. That's good to know. But that means we're all having this weird experience of being the one creating all of this. It was very weird. I don't know. I trailed off there. I don't even remember what we were starting out on.
No, you're doing great. Now I have something to make it either more clear or more confusing, depending on how you look at it. So to this idea, I'm a big fan of it, by the way. We've been talking about abduction cases and applying the abduction phenomena to the high strangeness phenomena. Okay, this observer inner you effect, or that you're the only one here, that it's you. So the idea goes though that when you're abducted, actually they take you. But they take you inside yourself. There's nowhere else to go again. Like, let's say that you're going out there, but you're going in yourself. So let's say, though, that the mechanism in which they approach this, or how they interact or interface with you on this level, would be perhaps something that's super mystical. You know, it's crazy. You're like, what the fuck? But it's kind of not so far out there. You know, it's not a squid hand that just swallows you up. You know,
it's like the Occam's razor of conspiracy theories.
yeah, right, exactly. So, but it takes you still, so the high strangeness steps up as you interface. So number one, you see something fucking crazy. Number two, you're interacted with these things that don't look like you, but they're bipedal. So there's some kind of, what do they call that? Uncanny valley thing there going on there. It's just, but still fucking weird. And then they're in this craft that you can conceptualize and you've seen on movies, but you don't know that we have that technology. And so you're just like, what the fuck? So it increases in extraordinary the whole time. But, then it just takes you inside of yourself when you're taken. And of course they can project it, you're in space. They can tell you whatever the fuck they want, whatever your consciousness is able to handle. So maybe that's like what it is. And this is the other thing about this information I wanted to ask you about, because this is something I've been thinking about. You're the dude to ask. So whenever we talk about ideas like finding out information, so the manifestation practice, do you do anything with manifestation? Just curious.
Yeah,
okay.
I do.
So when you
manifested everything, yeah.
Okay, so then good. This is a perfect example then.
Not great at it. I manifest a lot of negative shit too. So
you figured out how not to do it, which is still beneficial.
Yeah, it's wherever you're paying your attention, right?
That's right. Yeah, your currency, what you see. Yeah, your attention is your only currency, right? And so to this idea, okay, so manifestation works in the way that, yes, it is these types of understandings and what you feel, not think, but you have to think it to feel it. It's so what I think in the example I want to use here, if I can get to it, is that when you go on these journeys, you find out later on that the information you were given early on is not exactly true, but it's what you needed to hear at the time. So this idea like the Matrix, and whenever he goes to see the Oracle for the first time, spoiler alert, she tells him that he's not the one, and he turns around and walks out, and there's this whole thing. Now, she is the one that knows how to tell people their future, right? So there's discernment and wisdom in that. If you have that power and that knowledge, then you've got wisdom and discernment, hopefully.
Foresight, yeah.
But what she told him was what he needed to hear, which later we find out from Morpheus. So this is the idea, though, that you only come across information like this. And this is why these batches of things that pop up in my reality happen. As I look at them, it feels like that they're like mini downloads of what you're supposed to be getting now. And these synchronicities are kind of like from the universe from around the corner, and you're just like, oh, shit. And you run by there. But maybe that's it. Maybe it's a trickle thing based on your awareness and understanding, because you'll come back to something like a book or a movie, dude, and you'll watch it or read it again or something, and you're like, how the fuck did I not get all the subtle amazingness out of this? Like, how did this not change my life the same way? But it's because you're approaching it on the spiral that you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So dude, with that long rant, I mean, what do you think about that shit?
Dude, well, oh man, you made me think of just tonight I was reading a Fraggle Rock book to my son. Because, yes, we have like 15 of them from old school 80s. And, yeah, I read those to him because they're awesome. I pay attention to what I'm reading to him. And the Fraggle authors were pretty cool because they were legit. So I read to him tonight a story about like the Fraggles. Fuck, here I go. You got to take another bong rip because I completely lost my train of thought on fucking Fraggles, guys. Fraggles.
You got so excited. You're gonna have to help me, man, because I heard Fraggle Rock and I started getting pumped, and now I've got the song stuck in my head.
You gave me a lot, but what did you give me near the end there? That'll just
Man, it's a stream of fucking consciousness. I don't know. I was hoping you were paying attention. God damn it.
I was paying attention. Mostly, that's the problem. I get hit with like 17 fucking thoughts all at once. That's the problem. I'm trying to relate them all together.
You know, and it's being able, honestly, and I get it. But it's talking to you, dude, especially because I just hold you in such high esteem. I respect your opinion so much that I have like
that. Even when I can remember them, right?
No, I know. Yeah. Even this though, but in between it's been incredible. The things you can remember and stay on track have been unbelievable. So thank you for that. But it's being able to explore in this space. So I get a little diarrhea of the mouth there, but it's because I want to like dump ideas on you where I'm like, I don't know who else to tell. And I'm just like, Andy, you'll know how to talk about this.
I do the same thing to people, and I hope I come out the end. I hope they can respond.
No, for sure.
But I mean, yeah, we're talking about perception and our reality.
And hummingbird buttholes. You know, what I think, though, is the Oracle thing is what I was talking about. So basically it was that, do you think that you are given information along the way, even if it's misinformation, and the same practice?
Right.
And you can have like the same teacher, and they'll tell you something up top that's not necessarily true later, but it's what you need to know. The Mr. Miyagi thing, man, he wouldn't learning how to fucking wax on, wax off. He was learning how to defend a move. You know what I mean? We find that out later, but it took that to get there.
Yeah, I read some story about like some master, some lama or something like every time the protege would bring the pails of water to him that he asked for, he would kick him over and be like, bring me a pail of water. Yeah. It's just this weird way of getting the truth across without saying anything. Like, people get accused out in the public and rock stars and in movies, the messages and all of it is always being evil and always being like some predictive programming thing. But in a way, it's this like, this wink, it's kind of always there, kind of giving the hint that of what's going on and what you need to know at the time may be mostly hidden, but like you'll get enough of it to follow enough breadcrumbs to where you need to be. Like I ran into this weird archangel fucking, I don't know, guy that doesn't exist or did exist. At one point, he was behind the batter's cage at a big game and told me the wind was blowing out. I got up and crushed a grand slam and won the game. And then he was gone. Then years later, he appeared out of nowhere at Amazon, at Borders bookstore. And we had a creepy conversation because I needed a lighter, and then he was gone. It was just like this dude has popped up and given me advice and then has like vanished. And I only remember that it's him afterwards. It's very fucking weird, man. So like, even on a literal physical level, I've had like this little download in my face, almost like an agent coming through or something.
Yeah, or he's like
it's weird.
He's like your Windows paperclip. You know, the dude that would hop on with the eyes, and he would just kind of give you pointers. He's like, "Don't click that," and you're like, "Fuck off." But yeah, that's amazing, man. So he actually manifests in front of you now. How do you recognize him? Does he look the same or feel the same? Or both?
So I can't say like it's been a million times. It's been 2 times in my life that this man has popped up, and those 2 events happened. And I could go into more detail of why they were really just weird. Like the second time, especially, we were sitting at a bookstore, a bunch of us talking like conspiracies and stuff back in like 2003 or something when bookstores existed. Yeah. And this dude was sitting in the corner just on a laptop and asked one of my friends for help at some point. We eventually got up and left. I'm looking through my pants for a lighter. I can't find it anywhere. I'm trying to light a cigarette. They trail off to the car. And then this guy is like, need a light? And I look up and I'm like, I just get this weird feeling about him. And anyway, I'm like, oh yeah, you were the guy sitting over by us. And, my friend helped you on the computer and everything. He's like, yeah. Don't always believe what you hear or what you read. And I'm like, oh, you were hearing what we were talking about, man? Like consciousness and stuff. And he's like, yeah. Just don't always believe what you think either, Andy. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I'm like, this is too much of a synchronicity. And he's like, nothing is, or I said coincidence at the time. And he's like, nothing's a coincidence. Just remember, don't always believe what you think. And I was like, okay. And I gave him his lighter back and I walked away. I got in the car. I was like, you're not going to believe this. Oh, my lighter. Boom. Easy access right in my pocket that I was desperately searching around. How did I miss it? I just had to miss it, I guess. I just had to.
It's that shit.
Weird, right? I mean, I'm not saying the guy gave me the codes to the universe, but that was the second. I only realized it once I got in the car. Once I started to feel it and think about it, I'm like, every hair on my body. So I'm like, that was the dude behind the fucking batter's cage. Like, hey, kid, wind's blowing out for you. And I fucking hit a walk-off grand slam back when I was a jock and I wasn't awake. But yeah, man, didn't think about it like that at all. I think he must be some weird random local drunk or something, you know?
That's
Weird.
Absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
I've been waiting for a
that.
third. I'm waiting for a third encounter.
Just manifest it, man. Just be like, just say it here and it'll go out and we'll send the energy out for you.
I should give him a name.
I was about to say, what do you name him? What do you call him?
Shit, let's name him Steve.
Steve? Okay, we can't do better than Steve. I mean, what's he look like? Where's he from? Like Steve needs
I'm
a
all
backstory.
about Occam's razor, man. I'm all about humanizing shit. You know,
well, no, I'm with you too. I'm trying to further humanize the man. So where's he from? Is he single? You know, is he wearing a wedding ring? Has he got somebody that loves and cares for him? What are we talking about?
I think, you know, he's probably had a string of wives and he lives a very like weird, fucked up, dirty life. It seems he's always at bars playing pool and shit. But for just some reason, that seems to be where God likes to hang out sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's like Hancock, right? With Will Smith. Remember when he was kind of like shitty at the beginning until he got his shit together?
Yeah.
You know?
Or like every one of us sometimes. You know what I mean?
God.
I find myself like, I love the references that you use, particularly like the way you frame simulation theory. Because to me, as a person that loves survival games on the computer, you're using all the right lingo. Like you're turning like, oh yeah, you're turning the knob up on the curiosity. And like, yeah, I can turn my character's curiosity up, but you know, oh man, I gotta, you know, load up on the, you know, he's got more fat on his body or whatever. You know, I use that kind of lingo all the time. And it's made me think about simulation theory quite a bit differently. Like, holy shit, we're the ones creating the damn simulations.
Yes.
And we're just trying to pin it on on everything else. We're mocking what originally naturally is already happening, right? The organic thing, right back to the start there.
And as we do, we want to look outside and blame someone else for the things that we created. So if you come in this with a choice, then your meters that you adjusted, you don't get to test those. This is your playback. You know what I mean? Think of it like I think of it more like audio because I'm not a big game person. Like I'm all about it. I just don't make time for it. Okay,
that's fair.
I'm usually in the studio, so that's why I reference it like an audio board or something like that, like a DAW. Because in my mind, like you turn up your intensity or your dB or something like that. I picture the faders, and you have control over that, and then you hit play and you listen. And you just wait and see how it plays out. And you're like, the kick's too loud, or, oh, the empathy wasn't high enough on that lifetime. Mm-hmm. Let's run it again. And then you hit play. And maybe like you just do this lifetime. And then at the end of it, you sit back and you go, now it needs more snare. It needs more hi-hat. And then you adjust something and then go back to the goddamn beginning and hit play. And then you do it all again with that new addition and see how it seasons the experience differently. And then just like capture that one. And maybe this is like a project that we're like turning in for a grade somewhere else. And they're like, all right, I get my thesis together. You know, I can't fail this one like I've failed all the other ones. So it's not even a great one. You know what I mean? But it's, it's just, those are the ideas, man. And of course, nobody fucking knows, man. All of this is, unfalsifiable, unprovable. I mean, who cares? But I find joy in thinking about the ideas. It makes me see my world differently. And it makes things a lot easier because I don't mind if it's that unstable. I'm cool with it,
Hell yeah. Yeah. The curiosity, like, they always say the territory is not the map. Is that the expression? I don't know. But
the map is not the territory. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. It's just that, man. But we've touched on some cool stuff with like music and sound and everything and the importance there. I do it too. I sit at my DAW and we'll listen to the same 4 seconds over and over again, like, just on repeat, have it looped just so I can adjust a bunch of crap and decide what it really needs. It kind of takes over. The sound itself kind of wants to present itself, right? We're talking about all those different knobs. Presence is one of the most important knobs and on so many compressors and all different analog compressors. It's so just, to bring out what it's trying to say. It's like we're the conduit, or the computers are the conduit and we're the interpreters or something.
You're the artist. So
Yeah,
you're,
for sure.
yeah, you're the one creating the art, which is this experience. And then you're in the experience, which is the ultimate like meta fucking thing, right? But think of it this way. So let's compare it to audio, but I just had another thought. So let's say, okay, fuck me dead. So let's say that you are, like you visualize audio. And guys, if you've never seen audio, it just tracks waveforms. And now I'm recording Andy and I here, and I see two different patterns. There's two different expressions visually to me available that show me that him and I are both having a conversation. I could see when he talks, I could see my fucking long, ridiculous rants. And it's this beautiful visual thing. Well, what if you orchestrate all of the lives that way? So what if we're thinking too small when we think these crazy concepts like you dial everything in and then you push play and then we experience it? That's too small, right? For something like what we're talking about. So perhaps it's you are everything. So you scripted my life, everything about it. You scripted my wife's life and everyone I care about. You also scripted everyone's life around you that makes an impact in your experience, that plays a role in your experience, which would be probably a fuckload more people than you think. And so if you look at it that way, man, that's where that all is one and all of that and tailored and you're empowered, all of that's the kind of shit. And that's why also back to a callback from earlier, when you affect something now, you change everything, because you're it, and you're writing the code for all of it because you're all that's here.
Yeah, it's such a weird concept for people to get their mind around,
I'll let you know when I do. Fuck.
Yeah, exactly. None of us that's the thing. Anyone that tells you they do are liars. Not necessarily across the board. It's not, I shouldn't say that. That was harsh. But what I would say is people that are dead sure that they have the right way to tell everybody else what's going on.
Yes.
Because I think, especially in this community of like podcasters, we all just are trying to get what's in our heads out there. You know what I mean?
Like I said, this is a diary.
Man,
yeah.
Yeah, and the psychedelics for me is definitely a huge inspiration. Of course, you know that.
Oh yeah.
But of course, you're familiar with my interest in like the Bach saga too. And what's weird is that those two intermingle because one of my deepest psychedelic experiences was based on like finding like some sort of hidden story that exists at like the base of all language. And I don't remember it, of course. And I don't remember anything about it. Just this vague, weird, cryptic memory. And, I thought I was crazy. Everybody thought I was just crazy and tripping. But then 20 years later, I find this weird saga that is talking about the origin language of the planet. And the way it's presented is through phonetics and everything. And it's just like, oh God, again, it's another like hair-raising experience. We've been talking about sound resonance. You've been talking about the waveforms on the screen. You can identify the difference in your waveform versus mine, in the timbre in our voice, the tone, all of it, right? And that's one way to express what we're saying right now. But it's a really shitty way for us to just, you couldn't give that to someone on a piece of paper, it'd be gibberish, but, musical notes, people can interpret that. They can read musical notes, right? And it never changes, but it's not the best way to express the actual music or the piece of sound. You know what I mean? It's through audio. And that's the saga. The saga is an oral tradition passed down. And as soon as it does, this language that surrounds the saga hits the white paper, the black ink hits the white paper. Suddenly pronunciations get to pop up. And all of a sudden this original language that kind of gives away everything else about history. If we look into it enough and we have enough minds on it, it completely blurs it and completely skews it and everything. So it's so crazy to get into.
Dude, it sounds fascinating. I mean, do you want to go over a little bit or you want to save it for the next one? It's your call.
It's up to you, dude, man. If you want to save it as a teaser, we can do a little bit of it. Or we can just...
Let's do a little bit of it and then we'll cut it short. And then I'm going to have you on because I want to look into it further and you and I could just nerd out on it.
That sounds good, man. Because it's hard to present the Bach saga at all, and that is not just me saying that. That is Eeyore Bach's closest friend and the one who was passed the unsaid rights to like the story, basically the one who really started to pass it along to people after Eeyore was dead. And even before that, even he says, where to begin with a story that has no beginning and no end, because it's the story of our beginning, which has to start with mythology, of course, because we really don't know what happened. But some of the claims of Bach Saga, just to give like a little teaser for it, like I said, it involves the hypothetical root language of the entire human race, which is called root language, which from what my Swedish friend Jake and co-host of Roots of Creation says, that is the language that the Swedish people sing today, which is another interesting little thing. But they wouldn't admit it. It's very weird. It's very controversial in Finland and other parts of Scandinavia to bring up the Bach Saga. You're met with absolute hatred or absolute, piety. So it's very divisive.
It sounds incredible, and I can't wait to dive into it for you. So Switzerland, it's close to that, right? That's why they sing this ancient tongue right up there by the Hollow Earth entrance, dude. They're right up there by Agartha. That's what they are. They're guardians to Agartha, and they do it through song.
Guess what? Agartha is a story that is very close to Bach Saga. Anything about the North Pole is close to Bach Saga because that is what the saga claims to be the paradise of our ancient world. But it was called Hell.
Yeah, they named it like Iceland and Greenland to keep you away from it. You know what I mean? You know how they did that? They misnamed.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, there's an interesting story in Bach Saga about the lands. I mean, if we have to cut it short,
bro, no, we don't have to do anything. I can talk to you fucking all night long. You just, I want to make sure you're cool. Let's roll it.
Let's check it out. Let's check it out. So
go.
Let's start a little bit with the alphabet. Not too much. We'll just say the first letter in their alphabet. And by the way, the entire alphabet known as Alpharnus Betan. So that's pretty weird that it's very Germanic and very closely related to language that we're familiar with. Anyway, the first letter is E, which is pronounced as E, but it's actually the English I with a pole and a dot above it, because this stood for the North Pole and Polaris. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But it also stands for, apparently, the Bach Saga claims that there is a literal hole at the North Pole, but the North Pole isn't where it is anymore. It was in where Helsinki, Finland is now. So apparently the Earth shifted. Apparently we fell on our axis. That's what the saga suggests.
Well, what's interesting about that point is that we didn't, but the magnetic did. So if you're talking the magnetic north, which is tracking like crazy, right? Not our actual North Pole,
that's
right?
Probably what they're talking about.
Well, if you're talking magnetic pole, then now you're talking electromagnetics. Now you're talking like dimensional shit.
And
so
vortices.
Perhaps it's there, but it's just in a different dimension. Like Wakanda or some shit.
Well, from what a number of these researchers that were very close to Eeyore Bach claim when they've actually gone to these locations in Helsinki, Finland, they say there is straight up a vortex that has a Catholic museum built over it. Or actually, it's not Catholic. I think it's just as the controllers do. It's a like an ode to heathen culture. So it's like, we're going to totally hide your shit by presenting your shit. Isn't that the way they love to do?
That is absolutely the way. They also like to do the inversion of, 2009 is when that Swedish spiral happened. Remember that?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
interesting.
So it's a similar thing. It's been called a plasma event, which is very cool. I think one just recently happened, actually, that looks very identical. I'm not sure where. I just saw a quick picture. I don't know anything about it. I'm just talking shit. But there's something similar that happened, and that's, people talk about Project Bluebeam whenever they see that, but maybe it's something cooler. Again, you get to this point where you're like, yeah, Project Bluebeam's cool, but what if that's a psyop to what's even cooler, like a plasma apocalypse, dude, or an actual alien invasion, and they're just saying that they're going to fake it because they know that it's coming, and then when it comes, you can be like, Project Bluebeam, we're good, guys, and then poof, you're a blood mist, you know what I mean?
I don't like any information, really. I get caught down the rabbit holes, but I really don't like any information that comes from, like, super leaked sources and FOIA and stuff like that, because it's just, it reeks of like a lure. Like it's just they're just luring us in.
Well, Rick Doty,
You know what I mean?
he's a well-known, I want to say either former FBI or CIA. I'm not sure, familiar with the man enough. It is
Navy.
Navy. Okay.
Yeah.
And he was sent in and admittedly, like he told everybody, hey, I was sent here to tell you bullshit and to tell you that this, to plant all these seeds of rabbit holes that you go down. And then a lot of people, you know how it is when everybody's just looking for answers. And then they're
Right.
part of a club and then they're ostracized in their own home. You know what I mean? You can extrapolate the psychology on this of how effective it would be. It's a brilliant tactic. It's shit, but it's brilliant. But it's something like that, right? Like it can be a seeded thing. Oh
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
God. Okay,
So
go ahead,
go ahead.
please. No.
Oh, you want to continue
Yes,
with Box Saga
yes.
a little? Okay,
Yeah.
so we're all familiar with Atlantis. Well, according to Box Saga, what happened was when the Earth tilted, this ended this paradise time. This paradise time up north in this North Pole or Hell, Helsinki. It was also called Udenma, which then, of course, Odin, that's where that comes from. And that was the sun, Odin, even to the Box Saga. This area was a paradise time where in that concept, the saga claims that the sun was going around in a way that would give light and warmth 24/7, 365 to the North Pole where they live. So it would be literal the Garden of Eden or Heathen or Uden. So it's like, what was I going to say? After this paradise time, when this supposed tilt happened, let's let go of that and suspend disbelief because we know the Ice Age happened at some point. And the saga talks about the Great Ice Age. They call it Ragnarok, the first Ragnarok. And in this time period, all of the North was covered in ice. And they called everything in this time period all land is, or all the land ice. And it's all Atlantis. It's the same thing. And most of the locations that we suggest are Atlantis would have been affected by this ice age and would have been a part of all land ice. So it can be these individual places. The Box Saga brings things together more than anything else. Doesn't really discredit. It kind of rehumanizes. And again, the Occam's razor. So we have also the jet stream in this time period. According to the saga, the jet stream goes to this area and in this ice time keeps this area of Udenma and basically Scandinavia free of ice in some areas, but less frigid, more livable. So where most of the Northern Hemisphere was like wiped out, you have this area in the North supposedly that was left to thrive. And so you picture how long an ice age lasted. If you picture one civilization have to pick up the pieces, yet another part of the civilization is thriving and still creating and discovering and developing and building. You also have these people up in the North in this time period living in subterranean areas to keep away from still the cold. It wasn't frigid enough to like wipe out civilization, but it was still frigid. So they would live in these, I guess, what is described as the physical manifestation of a vortex up on the top. Basically, this subterranean area that is ultimately created by this, toroidal force of the earth of some kind. So they live down there. And so we've all seen horror movies where their eyes turn blue and they turn nocturnal and shit like that. But more than that, we've seen Arctic animals and we've seen Arctic people, of course, now. But of course, we always have these threads of bigger, taller people from the past, right? So all these gods that we talk about descend from heaven, and Udenma was heaven back then. They're descending from the north, these tall, blonde, Nordic, pale-skinned, blue-eyed gods. But in Box Saga, in root language, God means good. It means good person. And that has massive implications. You know what I mean? Because later in religions, we find out when you get into more like the esoteric versions of our more accepted religions, you find out that like Lord and King and things like that are really talking about, wisdom givers, these ascended people who understand, Adam was even Lord after he ate of the tree because he was like a god. It's all connected back to this very simple human story in the Bach saga. And it's pretty wild. We haven't even touched the surface, but that's a little bit.
It's fascinating, and I absolutely love it. And I've already got some batshit crazy ideas where my mind went with it whenever you were talking about it. A quick one before I let you go would be that it's so a lot of people talk about this idea that if we do live on a realm or a flat disk, let's say, let's just add this to the conversation because it's been
Absolutely.
so cool, and we'll wrap it with this. So it's on like a disk or whatever. Well, life and everything emanates from the area that we call the North Pole. And so with that, and there's a bunch of maps that depict this and lore and legends, such as the one that you're talking about. Because if you think about it from that perspective, okay, and that a sun comes out of there and is born out of there, and there's a black sun underneath, and so there is a subterranean element to this, and perhaps that's where another participant in this area comes from, and basically that there's like a reset here, and with the same land maybe, or that we evolve with the land out, and that goes into extra land and shit, and new suns come out, and so they heat up the area, and we basically travel with the sun, as a civilization as it springs out. If the idea goes, but also it would be something to where the quote that made me think about it whenever you were talking about it was that it was lit in the north for a certain period of time, that the sun was there. So that would imply that it stayed there. If you follow this model, like it was pretty local to that area to start to heat this thing up. And as it progresses or as time passes, those that can survive and make it, follow it out. And maybe that's what this whole damn thing is. And that's where this idea of like the migration of species, where you have the disappearance of things like the Aztecs and the Mayans, and you're like, where the fuck did these people go and stuff? Well, this is one of the ideas that may lend to that. And let's say also, though, that this would also explain the extraterrestrial phenomena, because then they're not coming from outer space, because it's just kind of an area, right, of realm. They're coming from one of the other rings of higher dimensionality, because they've already experienced this in this way, and basically it's like a ripple on a pond. So new suns approach, or new abilities for us to survive, and then you evolve and you gravitate, and that's what higher dimensionality is. That's what the next step is for you when you die. Maybe you wake up in that ring, and then now you've got a bunch of new things to figure out.
Maybe that's the connection there, because like I've often
Atlantis.
wondered. Well, go ahead. Yeah,
I just said Atlantis, the rings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and also Bach Saga, all these like Udenma and every like structure of a village or whatever is ringlands. It's rings, and the king is in the middle, and the different 5 class systems are outward. It's very similar to what they talk about in Atlantis and everything. It's really weird. And
from that perspective, though, it would be that you would want to tell the story from the center point being the middle, or the smaller ring in this example, the newer, younger ring. You would say that was the king, because that's your perspective from your people. So the other rings would be actually the opposite in consciousness, right? But it's an ego-driven perspective from my point of view. That's why you would say that you're the king in the middle, or they place the king in the middle. I mean, strategically it works, right, for defense, but symbolically maybe it would mean that we are here at this point and we have yet to evolve. But that, again, what this confirms to me, this idea that my optimism is for naught, that this is like the worst it is. This is the lowest density that it is. And you just progress to something cooler, let's say, or more intriguing.
We very well could, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm still battling with it, and I think I need to meditate more. I need to maybe do the DMT more again.
Dude, come
it's
to
been
Texas,
a long time.
We'll do that. I haven't
so
smoked DMT. Ayahuasca, and that's occasionally.
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah, I've never done Mother Ayahuasca, so there you go. I mean, we come from 2 same worlds, but just different perspectives on that, But I would love to come to Texas and talk about all this shit.
Anytime. Bring the wife, bring the kiddos too. We got a whole damn ranch situation out here. They love the goats and the donkeys and shit like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Andy, dude, this has been easily one of the most enjoyable conversations I've ever had in my life. I can't thank you enough, dude.
Likewise, homie.
One of just the most incredible people I've ever met. You've just been a sweetheart to me, and everyone that knows you loves you. And so I'm grateful to call you brother. So thank you again.
I appreciate it, brother, man. Thanks for having me on, dude. This has been fun. We'll do it again. We'll talk more box saga, even off, I'll blow your mind some more. The language is where it's at for sure. Like the language is the rabbit hole, man, because once you start to be able to do it yourself with your own language and you start to go, oh shit. And then you check on it and you start referencing things, you're like, oh shit. It just flies from there.
That it would have taken turns and then come back. Okay, so then that's what I want to talk to you about, but we're going to save it for next time, okay?
Fuck
Andy,
yeah, man.
Dude,
This has
thank
been
you
real,
so
dude.
much, dude. You're a brother. Thank you.
Dude. Thanks for having me, man.
Easily one of the coolest dudes on the planet, arranges the best panel shows, has the most interesting perspectives, so insightful. Andy is just a treasure to this place, and we are grateful to call him family. So check the show notes for sure, guys, to find Andy and all the ways to check out his show, The Deep Share Podcast. Fantastic. Could not recommend it highly enough. So I also check down in the show notes our affiliate links, foodforestabundance.com, get your freedom from fear on, as well as Libsyn if you want to start your own podcast. And if you are going to buy any damn thing from Amazon, please utilize our link. It just helps the show. That's it for something you're going to do anyway. So also, if you'd like to expand your experience with us here, do so in the link at the bottom called expandingrealitypodcast.com. That is going to be where links to Rockfin. We're doing a bunch of cool live stuff over there right now, so check that out. Also, all the socials and merchandise and all that good stuff is over there, guys. So make sure you check the show notes for that, as well as a big revamp on the website. So there's a bunch of free stuff. The Too Cool for YouTube things are over there, and just some really neat things that you guys can go do for free. So just go check it out. So beyond anything, guys, go out into this place, whatever the hell this mysterious, amazing thing is, and y'all just pick up a piece of litter, of course, buy somebody in line around you a coffee or a meal or something small like that. It doesn't mean a huge thing to you, but it makes a massive difference, and the ripple effects are felt, trust me. Also, while you're being amazing and raising that vibration, go ahead and get out of the left-hand lane if you got somebody behind you wanting to pass. And above all anything else, guys, go out into this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place, and y'all just be good to one another. Thank y'all so much for listening, and we will see you next time.
David's Bridal, where brides and bridesmaids get fabulously dressed. We let our friends pick out what we wear, show off our dance moves, obsess over every little detail, hold your hand through it all, smile bravely when it's time to let go, make your dreams come true. The things we do for love, only at David's Bridal.